Have you ever wondered what made Fat Albert stick in your memory so vividly? Beyond the humor and catchphrases, the show hides secrets most people never notice. Tiny details that made it feel like you were right there in the middle of the Junkyard Gang's adventures. Here they are. Fat Albert was based on real kids. Bill Cosby didn't invent Fat Albert from imagination. He built the character from real-life childhood experiences in 1960s Philadelphia. Picture the summer streets, asphalt radiating heat through your sneakers, the smell of fried snacks from a corner store, the chorus of children yelling across alleys, voices bouncing off brick walls. Cosby's friend, the real-life inspiration for Albert, Niall Esker, was the life of the playground, the one every kid gravitated toward. The rest of the Junkyard Gang was inspired by his neighborhood friends, their quirks, clumsiness, and speech patterns. Mushmouth's confusing rambling, copied from a friend who twisted words in hilarious ways. Cosby didn't just want to entertain, he wanted authenticity, capturing the rhythm and chaos of real childhood friendships. Every laugh, trip, or shout was a memory transposed onto the screen, and you felt it. Think about your own neighborhood growing up. Weren't there friends who seemed bigger than life, whose personalities you could almost touch? Fat Albert captured that feeling, turning it into something you could see and hear every Saturday morning. The show's magic came from being simultaneously exaggerated and completely believable. You weren't watching a cartoon, you were reliving the energy, joy, and mess of your own playground adventures. That connection made every "hey, hey, hey" more than a catchphrase. It was an invitation to step into a shared childhood memory. This level of rooted authenticity is rare in cartoons today, yet it was the foundation of why Fat Albert feels timeless, even decades later. The Junkyard was a sensory playground. The Junkyard wasn't just a setting, it was a world you could feel, smell, and hear. Imagine sunlight glinting off rusted metal, the sharp tang of old tires mixing with damp grass, the crunch of gravel underfoot, and the hollow clank of a bucket being kicked. Every detail was crafted to make the environment feel alive and tangible. Unlike modern sterile animation settings, the Junkyard was chaotic, imperfect, and full of personality. It wasn't tidy, it was messy, textured, and layered with the debris of real childhood. Adventures. Cosby wanted viewers to feel like they were there, climbing tire towers, swinging from rusty chains, or exploring piles of scrap that could turn into spaceships, castles, or forts. That tactile sense of play is something children intuitively recognize. The Junkyard also reinforced the themes of the show. Creativity, resilience, and friendship could thrive in imperfect spaces. It celebrated the imagination required to make fun from what adults might call junk. Watching the gang navigate this environment taught viewers about resourcefulness, problem solving, and joy in the ordinary. Can you remember the smell of your own backyard or playground? How even the smallest objects could become central to your adventures? That's exactly what Fat Albert captured. Every episode was a sensory invitation to step inside the Junkyard and feel like a child again, exploring, laughing, and learning in a world designed to look chaotic but feel alive. The design of the environment gave the show a richness that made it endlessly watchable, even decades later. Fat Albert taught lessons through humor. Fat Albert wasn't just funny, it was educational in the most subtle and effective way. Every episode carried a moral lesson, honesty, respect, empathy, but never in a preachy tone. Instead, the show wove these lessons into comedy, making them feel natural. Imagine sitting on the living room floor, fingers sticky with finger paint, watching the Junkyard Gang navigate small dilemmas. Mushmouth might lie to impress someone, Dumb Donald might struggle with a task, and Fat Albert would step in, balancing humor with guidance. You laughed at their antics, but subconsciously absorbed the lesson. The genius of this approach was how it allowed children to learn through empathy and observation rather than lectures. Cosby understood that humor lowers defenses, making it easier for viewers to internalize lessons without realizing it. Unlike many modern shows where morals are spelled out at the end of each episode, Fat Albert let you feel the lesson, connecting emotionally to the characters' experiences. The combination of laughter, relatable scenarios, and real-world consequences made each episode resonate deeply. Children didn't just watch, they participated in the moral experiment. Think back to when you first realized a lesson from a funny moment as a kid. Doesn't it stick better than something you were told outright? Fat Albert perfected this. Its stories were entertaining, yes, but they also trained hearts and minds, teaching life lessons while leaving room for imagination, mistakes, and personal connection. That's part of why the show still feels meaningful decades later. It wasn't just a cartoon, it was an emotional experience. The theme song was a character in itself. The Fat Albert theme song wasn't just catchy, it was a full sensory and emotional primer for the show. Every note reflected the characters' personalities. The brass mirrored Fat Albert's exuberance, offbeat percussion echoed Mushmouth's awkward charm, and jazz-influenced snare rhythms captured Weird Harold's slinky movements. The melody wasn't just music, it was an invitation into the world. Picture the sound booming through a living room filled with sunlight, cereal bowls on the floor, your excitement rising as the song began. By the time you shouted, "Hey, hey, hey," along with Fat Albert, you weren't just watching, watching, you were part of the environment. Music communicated more than words ever could, giving viewers a sensory map of the Junkyard Gang's universe before a single line was spoken. Each instrumental choice subtly set the mood, built anticipation, and reinforced character traits. That integration of sound and story design is rare today, where music often serves as background noise rather than a narrative tool. The theme song of Fat Albert worked on multiple levels. It taught rhythm, hinted at character dynamics, and anchored viewers emotionally to the show's world. Even decades later, hearing that tune instantly triggers nostalgia. Isn't it amazing how a few carefully chosen notes could transport an entire generation back to sticky fingers, laughter, and the thrill of Saturday morning cartoons? Mushmouth's voice was a deliberate experiment. Mushmouth's voice, with its peculiar mispronunciations and halting speech, wasn't an accident. It was a carefully crafted experiment in phonetics and comedy. Cosby and his team tested dozens of variations to ensure it was funny, still understandable, and had its own charm. Imagine sitting in front of the TV, sunlight streaming through the window, your tongue tripping over the sounds as you tried to mimic him, laughing at your failures. That voice did more than entertain. It trained young viewers' ears, helping them parse complex sounds, improving attention to speech, and subtly enhancing cognitive listening skills. Behind the humor, the team paid careful attention to consonant shifts, vowel, placement, and rhythmic patterns to create something uniquely memorable. Mushmouth became a tool for both comedy and auditory development. Every episode where he stumbled over words gave children a playful challenge. Repeat it, laugh, learn. Today, very few cartoons integrate learning into humor with such precision. Mushmouth's voice was a testament to the thoughtfulness of Fat Albert's production. It was chaotic, silly, and ridiculous, but beneath the surface, it was carefully engineered to engage, amuse, and educate simultaneously. Isn't it incredible to think about how a character you laughed at as a child was also shaping the way you listened and interacted with language, all without you ever realizing it? Bill Cosby voiced Fat Albert himself. You probably remember the booming, friendly voice of Fat Albert, that deep, resonant laugh that made you feel like the gang was right there in your living room. But what you might not know is that Bill Cosby himself provided the voice for Fat Albert. Imagine Cosby in the recording studio. The faint smell of old microphones, cables tangling like spaghetti on the floor, the soft hum of fans keeping the equipment cool, and him experimenting with intonation and timing to capture the perfect mix of authority, warmth, and humor. Cosby wanted Albert to feel real, approachable, and distinctly human. A character that felt as if he could step off the screen and join you on your living room floor. The voice wasn't just a performance, it was an extension of Cosby's own childhood memories, his admiration for his neighborhood friends, and the rhythm of their everyday speech. By giving the character his own voice, Cosby ensured that Fat Albert's personality was authentic, grounded in lived experience, and relatable across generations. When Albert chuckled, it wasn't a rehearsed laugh. It was designed to feel spontaneous, infectious, and communal, and it worked. Children watching would often repeat the catchphrase, "Hey, hey, hey," in their bedrooms, echoing the warmth and inclusion embedded in the voice. The recordings captured subtleties that made Albert both a leader and a friend, someone kids admired and felt safe with. Think about that for a moment. A cartoon character with enough depth and authenticity that children internalized the moral compass he carried. That's rare even today. The voice itself taught empathy, confidence, and joy without ever saying a word directly. And when you hear that laugh now, don't you feel a tug of nostalgia, a connection to a character who, because of Cosby's voice, felt like a part of your own childhood neighborhood? Fat Albert wasn't just voiced, he was embodied, and that's a secret that makes the show timeless. The show was groundbreaking for its realistic representation of urban childhood. Fat Albert was one of the first cartoons to depict urban childhood in a realistic, relatable way, and that was revolutionary for 1972. Imagine the streets of Philadelphia, cracked sidewalks, fire hydrants spraying water in the summer heat, the aroma of street food wafting through the alleys. These weren't sanitized versions of childhood. They were honest, textured, and filled with life. Each episode reflected real challenges, social dynamics, and friendships kids actually experienced, from conflicts over games to small acts of kindness. Cosby insisted that the stories reflect truth, even when filtered through humor. He wanted children from all backgrounds to feel seen, and he wanted kids outside urban environments to witness a world that was authentic rather than caricatured. The realism extended beyond visuals to character behavior. The Junkyard Gang bickered, made mistakes, and learned lessons just like actual kids. They argued over games, competed for attention, and sometimes got into minor trouble, but these moments were always layered with humor and heart. Unlike other cartoons of the era, where lessons were handed down like moral decrees, Fat Albert allowed children to experience social lessons through observation and empathy, making them more impactful and memorable. Even the language, slang, and speech patterns were grounded in authenticity, reflecting the ways kids in those neighborhoods actually talked. The show conveyed diversity, friendship, and resilience without feeling forced. Think about watching this as a kid. The smell of toast from the kitchen, a sunbeam across your face, and the characters on screen navigating challenges that mirrored your own life. life. That sense of recognition and relatability was intentional. It wasn't just entertainment, it was storytelling designed to connect, educate, and validate childhood experiences that had been largely invisible in mainstream media. And even decades later, the honesty of those portrayals still resonates. Fat Albert didn't just entertain, it broke barriers, showing that cartoons could be funny, emotionally rich, and socially meaningful all at once. The Junkyard Gang was diverse, even for the time. Fat Albert wasn't just about fun, it was quietly revolutionary in its representation of diversity. The Junkyard Gang included characters of different shapes, sizes, and personalities, each with a distinct role in the group dynamic. Imagine walking down those urban streets with Albert, Mushmouth, Dumb Donald, and Weird Harold, each child animated in full color, full life. This diversity wasn't a gimmick, it was intentional. Cosby wanted children to see that friendship could thrive across differences, that every kid brought unique skills, quirks, and value to the group. Each character's personality served as a mirror of real-world kids. Fat Albert's leadership, Mushmouth's speech idiosyncrasies, Dumb Donald's struggles with self-confidence, and Weird Harold's eccentricity all reflected traits Cosby observed in real children. By giving them distinct voices, both literally and metaphorically, the show subtly taught lessons about acceptance, inclusion, and empathy. Children watching could identify with a character, learning that being different wasn't just acceptable, it was celebrated. Think of the sensory experience, the gang rolling through the junkyard, laughter bouncing off metal scraps, the warm sun on your face, and feeling included in their adventures despite your own quirks. Even in the early 1970s, this was bold. Representation in children's media was limited, and few shows tackled friendship among kids who didn't fit a single mold. And doesn't that feel relevant even today? Decades later, the diversity of the Junkyard Gang still resonates, reminding us that inclusion, kindness, and friendship have always been timeless lessons. The show featured educational public service announcements. One of the things many viewers forget is that Fat Albert often included short educational segments or public service announcements at the end of episodes. These weren't heavy-handed. Instead, they were carefully integrated into the show's tone and characters. Imagine sitting in front of the TV, the faint smell of freshly poured cereal in the kitchen, your attention still captivated by the Junkyard Gang, when suddenly Albert turns to speak directly to the audience. The lessons varied, from fire safety to nutrition to the importance of honesty, but they felt natural because the characters delivered them in a familiar voice, in familiar settings, as if offering advice to a friend rather than lecturing a child. These segments were groundbreaking because they merged entertainment with real-life education in a seamless way. The PSAs weren't added at random. They were an extension of the show's philosophy, teaching life skills while keeping fun and humor at the forefront. Think about how that shaped you as a viewer. Those small messages sandwiched between laughter, adventures, and everyday dilemmas likely influenced behavior, perspective, and empathy without ever feeling like formal education. Fat Albert was one of the first cartoons to use beloved characters to deliver real-world guidance, making the lessons stick in ways that pure instruction could never achieve. That's a legacy that still echoes today. Bill Cosby insisted on authenticity in character design. Every character in Fat Albert, from the tallest to the quirkiest, was carefully designed to feel authentic. Cosby rejected caricatures that exaggerated features purely for comedy, insisting instead that the gang reflect real children he knew. Imagine the artists in the studio, pencils scratching paper, paint palettes mixing earthy tones, reference photos of actual neighborhood kids scattered across the desk. Every detail, the shape of Albert's frame, Mushmouth's oversized teeth, Dumb Donald's hat, was grounded in reality. The goal wasn't perfection, it was relatability. Children watching could see themselves in the characters or recognize friends from their own neighborhoods. Authenticity extended to movement and expression as well. Animators observed children playing, noting how they stumbled, gestured, and reacted in small, nuanced ways. Those tiny, deliberate details, like how Fat Albert laughs, how Mushmouth shifts nervously, or how Weird Harold gestures dramatically, made the gang feel alive. That authenticity allowed the audience to connect emotionally, laugh freely, and absorb subtle life lessons naturally. Think back. When you watched the Junkyard Gang, did you ever feel like you were part of that world? That feeling of recognition, connection, and shared childhood experience wasn't accidental. It was intentional, painstakingly crafted, and it's one of the reasons Fat Albert still resonates decades later. Cosby's commitment to authenticity made the show timeless, a window into childhood that feels as real now as it did in 1972. The Junkyard Gang had distinct personalities. One of the things that made Fat Albert unforgettable was how each member of the Junkyard Gang had a fully realized personality. They weren't just interchangeable kids, they had unique traits, quirks, and ways of interacting with the world. Picture Albert as the calm, guiding center of the group, his laugh booming like a gentle drum. Mushmouth stumbled through speech in his awkward, endearing way, while Dumb Donald struggled with confidence yet had a heart of gold. Weird Harold's eccentricities brought an unpredictable, joyful energy, and Rudy or Bill often balanced the gang with cleverness or mischief. Each child felt like a real person, complete with contradictions, insecurities, and strengths. Cosby drew these personalities from real-life friends, observing how kids teased, supported, and challenged one another. The brilliance of these distinct personalities was how they created natural conflict and growth. Every episode's story emerged organically because the characters' differences shaped their interactions. Imagine the smell of summer in Philadelphia, sun bouncing off the pavement, children laughing as they navigated small dilemmas, and each personality reacting in ways that felt authentic. That authenticity made lessons about friendship, empathy, and honesty land deeply with viewers. You didn't just watch the gang, you felt a connection to them, recognizing traits in yourself or friends. The dynamic personalities also made the show endlessly entertaining. You never knew exactly how a problem would unfold because each child approached it in their own distinctive way. By giving each character individuality, Fat Albert became more than a cartoon. It became a vivid, living neighborhood. And doesn't that remind you of your own childhood friends, each so different yet forming an inseparable group? Bill Cosby, personally supervised storylines. Cosby's involvement in Fat Albert went far beyond voice acting. He personally supervised storylines, ensuring that every episode carried a balance of humor, heart, and moral guidance. Imagine him sitting in a production office, scripts strewn across the desk, the faint scent of coffee and paper surrounding him, as he suggested revisions and edits to dialogue. He would insist on scenarios that reflected real childhood experiences, scraped knees, schoolyard disagreements, mischief, and the joy of small victories. Cosby's eye for authenticity ensured that lessons weren't preachy, they were embedded in the stories naturally. By directly shaping storylines, Cosby preserved the realism and relatability that set Fat Albert apart from other cartoons of the era. He wanted kids to see themselves reflected in the gang's adventures, to laugh at familiar situations, and to walk away having absorbed subtle moral lessons. Every narrative was infused with his understanding of neighborhood dynamics, childhood friendships, and the nuanced challenges of growing up. Imagine sitting in your living room, popcorn in hand, as the Junkyard Gang navigates a tricky problem, laughing and learning in tandem. That emotional resonance wasn't accidental. It was Cosby's careful supervision at work. He ensured that episodes maintained a rhythm where humor and heart reinforced each other. Even decades later, the show feels deeply authentic, largely because Cosby didn't just provide ideas. He guided the story with his own lived experience, shaping characters, dialogue, and conflicts so they felt real. Watching the show now, it's clear that this personal touch is what made Fat Albert both entertaining and emotionally meaningful. The show used physical comedy to teach. Fat Albert relied heavily on physical comedy to make lessons accessible and memorable. Tripping over tires, bumping into trash piles, or stumbling through awkward social moments wasn't just funny, it was purposeful. Children could relate to the gang's physical blunders, experiencing laughter while observing cause and effect in real time. Imagine the feel of warm summer air on your skin, the faint smell of rubber and rust, and the way your stomach would lurch as Albert or Mushmouth fell in some absurd but harmless way. That sense of immediacy made the humor visceral. The physical comedy also reinforced the emotional and moral core of the show. Mistakes, clumsiness, and accidents became teaching moments. When a character's blunder led to a minor problem, the resolution often demonstrated problem-solving, empathy, or teamwork. This method allowed children to absorb lessons without needing explicit instruction. They laughed first, learned second, an incredibly effective technique for engaging young minds. Physical comedy also made the characters relatable. Everyone has experienced minor embarrassment or failure, and seeing the gang navigate it with humor validated those experiences. By turning mistakes into both entertainment and education, Fat Albert created a learning environment that was immersive, joyful, and subtly impactful. And looking back, isn't it fascinating how laughter became the vehicle for understanding right and wrong? The show didn't lecture. It made you feel the lesson while giggling alongside the gang, cementing both humor and morals in memory. Many episodes were inspired by real events. Cosby drew inspiration from real-life events and childhood experiences to write Fat Albert episodes. Picture the streets of North Philadelphia, summers thick with heat and the smell of street food, kids creating games from trash, and neighbors keeping a watchful eye. Many plot lines mirrored actual events, from arguments over a baseball game to trying to help someone in need. This grounding in realities gave the series a sense of authenticity rarely seen in cartoons. Episodes weren't random. They reflected real-life lessons, friendships, and challenges. By pulling from real events, the show allowed children to connect immediately with the stories. The audience could see their own lives reflected in Albert's adventures, from navigating schoolyard disputes to helping friends overcome obstacles. The realism made humor sharper, lessons more resonant, and moments of kindness impactful. Even minor details, the rustling of leaves, the sound of bicycle wheels on concrete, the uneven terrain of the junkyard, were intentionally included to evoke a real sense of place. It wasn't just a cartoon, it was a slice of neighborhood life, filtered through humor and heart. That connection between reality reality and animation is why viewers still remember specific episodes vividly decades later. Fat Albert didn't just entertain, it reflected the rhythms, triumphs, and chaos of childhood itself. And isn't that why we remember it so fondly? Because beneath the jokes, it was always telling a story we recognized and understood on a personal level. Cosby believed cartoons could be morally powerful. Finally, one of Fat Albert's most enduring secrets is that Cosby believed cartoons could carry real moral weight. Unlike many contemporary shows that treated morality as an afterthought, Cosby designed Fat Albert to integrate ethical lessons seamlessly into storytelling. Imagine sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, the sun shining through your window, and listening as the gang navigates friendship conflicts, honesty challenges, or small acts of kindness. Children weren't being taught through lectures, they were learning through laughter, observation, and empathy. This approach required careful attention to dialogue, pacing, and humor. Cosby ensured that the humor never undercut the lesson, but instead reinforced it. Every pratfall, quip, and mishap contained the potential to teach something meaningful. The audience learned about problem-solving, responsibility, and social dynamics in a way that felt organic and personal. Unlike didactic programming, Fat Albert made moral lessons experiential, grounded in the everyday lives of the characters. Cosby's philosophy was revolutionary. Entertainment and ethics could coexist, enriching each other rather than competing. That principle still resonates today, making Fat Albert not only a nostalgic favorite, but also an example of how children's media can educate without compromising fun. And looking back, isn't it remarkable how effortlessly a cartoon could make you think about right and wrong while keeping you laughing? That balance of joy and morality is what made Fat Albert truly timeless. Fat Albert's laugh was carefully crafted. You remember that laugh. It wasn't just funny, it was contagious. But what most viewers don't know is that Bill Cosby spent hours perfecting Fat Albert's laugh to make it resonate emotionally with children. Imagine him in the recording studio, cables snaking across the floor, the warm scent of old equipment and coffee lingering in the air. Cosby experimenting with pitch, cadence, and volume until the laugh felt authentic. It wasn't just a sound effect, it was a character in itself, reflecting Albert's personality. Warm, gentle, and full of life. The laugh served multiple purposes. It punctuated jokes, eased tension, and signaled Albert's approachability. Children could immediately recognize it and feel welcomed into the world of the Junkyard Gang. The laugh was intentionally exaggerated but grounded in humanity, so it could be both humorous and comforting. Even small variations in pitch or timing conveyed subtle emotions like amusement, concern, or triumph. That careful attention to detail ensured that Albert's laugh was not just funny, but emotionally resonant, embedding itself in the memories of viewers. Think back to hearing that laugh for the first time. Did it make you smile instantly, even if nothing else was happening? That's the magic Cosby engineered. The laugh acted as a bridge between character and audience, drawing viewers into the narrative while simultaneously signaling joy, warmth, and inclusion. It became more than a signature. It was a tool for emotional engagement, subtly teaching empathy and encouraging a connection to the characters that lasted decades. And isn't it remarkable how something as simple as a laugh could make a cartoon feel alive, personal, and unforgettable? The show tackled social issues subtly. Fat Albert wasn't just a fun cartoon. It addressed real social issues in a way children could understand. Poverty, peer pressure, bullying, and honesty were woven naturally into episodes, never forced or preachy. Imagine sitting cross-legged in front of the TV, the faint smell of your breakfast still in the air, as Albert and his friends navigate a problem you yourself might have faced on a playground. That sense of realism made the lessons hit harder because they felt directly relevant to viewers' lives. Cosby's genius was in presenting these topics subtly, through humor and relatable conflict. Children saw the consequences of actions firsthand, not through lectures. The social issues were integrated into the gang's interactions, conflicts, and resolutions. By laughing at mistakes and celebrating successes, kids internalized empathy, resilience, and problem-solving skills. Even today, few cartoons handle social education with such finesse. Episodes like these allowed viewers to process complex situations in a safe and engaging way, experiencing the characters' emotions, triumphs, and setbacks as their own. Think about it. The rustle of leaves underfoot, the smell of hot asphalt, the chaotic energy of the junkyard. Every detail made the social lessons more tangible. Fat Albert wasn't just teaching kids abstract ideas. It was showing them how to navigate real life, wrapped in laughter and adventure. That subtlety is what makes the show resonate decades later. The show's humor worked for all ages. Fat Albert's humor was layered in a way that appealed to children and adults alike. Imagine watching an episode on a lazy Saturday morning. Kids on the floor, parents sipping coffee, sunlight filtering through the windows. On the surface, the jokes were physical and silly, trips, falls, and exaggerated expressions. But beneath that, there were clever references, wordplay, and social observations that adults could appreciate. This multi-layered humor helped the show cross generations. Parents didn't feel alienated. They could laugh alongside their children and even recognize subtle commentary on friendship, morality, and society. society. The result was shared experience, bonding, and memory making. Cosby's writing ensured that humor reinforced lessons rather than distracting from them. The show trusted the audience, both kids and adults, to catch jokes, notice character quirks, and appreciate irony. That balance of comedy, empathy, and relatability is rare in children's media, making Fat Albert timeless. Imagine those moments now, your younger self laughing at a pratfall, your parent chuckling at the dialogue, the smell of breakfast in the air, sunlight warming the room. The humor created connection, education, and nostalgia all at once. Fat Albert wasn't just funny, it was universally appealing and emotionally intelligent, a rare feat for a cartoon that made both learning and laughter feel effortless. The show inspired future animators. Fat Albert's realism, character depth, and moral storytelling inspired generations of animators. Artists and writers grew up watching the Junkyard Gang, absorbing lessons about authentic storytelling, layered humor, and socially conscious narratives. Imagine young animators in their bedrooms, sketches scattered across the floor, headphones on, recreating Albert's laugh or Mushmouth's awkward speech. The show provided a blueprint for crafting characters who feel alive and stories that entertain while educating. The emphasis on authentic neighborhoods, sensory-rich environments, and moral lessons created a standard that few children's programs matched. Its influence can be traced in later animated series that balance humor with life lessons and character development. Animators learned that children could handle complexity and that laughter could coexist with meaningful themes. Cosby's insistence on authenticity, dialogue rooted in real experience, and immersive environments shaped the way cartoons approach childhood stories for decades. Think about your own childhood memories of Fat Albert, the textures, the smells, the voices, and imagine that same experience shaping the creative vision of someone decades later. The show wasn't just entertainment, it was a pedagogical model, a source of inspiration, and a creative spark that continues to ripple through animation today. Fat Albert remains a timeless classic. Finally, the enduring appeal of Fat Albert lies in its blend of humor, heart, and humanity. Even decades later, the show resonates because it captured universal childhood experiences with authenticity and care. Think about that smell of summer, the sound of laughter echoing through the junkyard, and the warmth of a character who seemed to understand you, laugh with you, and guide you gently through life's small lessons. Its legacy endures because it was more than a cartoon. It was a mirror to childhood, showing the joy, clumsiness, friendship, and moral growth that defined growing up. The characters, humor, and lessons remain relevant, offering nostalgia for adults and meaningful storytelling for new generations. From Albert's laugh to Mushmouth's quirks, from the sensory junkyard to the subtle social lessons, every detail was crafted with care. Fat Albert wasn't just entertainment, it was a cultural touchstone, a piece of childhood preserved in animation, and a reminder that laughter, friendship, and kindness are timeless. When you watch it now, you're not just seeing a show, you're stepping back into a world that feels alive, a neighborhood full of characters who are both wildly entertaining and deeply human. And that's why, more than 50 years later, Fat Albert remains a classic, one that teaches, delights, and connects generations, all with a simple, unforgettable, hey, hey, hey. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to watch another fascinating video like this, click on one of the boxes on your screen right now.